of security superstars comes from? How do you go from student to DEF CON speaker? Our next speaker, Dr. Weihan, is here to show us how. He's an associate professor who doesn't just teach cybersecurity, he's building a pipeline for new talent. His talk is called Turning Student Work into Publishable Security Work. He's going to share his unique approach to education. It's not just about memorizing content, it's about doing. His students build tools, run CTFs, and write real-world disclosure reports. And the result? His students' projects are getting accepted at huge conferences, including Black Hat and DEF CON. How cool is that? Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Weihan.
All right, thank you for being here. Whoops, this thing moves. Okay, thank you for being here for my talk. So today I'm going to talk about how we turn our students' work into publishable security work. Basically, what we do is we get our students to do their assignments, their projects, and so on. And from there, we see what we can do with those projects. Some of them we pipe to conferences, some of them are vulnerabilities, so we report them and all that. It's not really a playbook, all right? So at the end of the day, whoops. At the end of the day, yeah, we're going to talk a lot about problems, and we may end up with a lot of problems in a more ordered manner, actually. So a little bit about who I am. I'm Weihan. My hacker name is Ice Bear. Associate professor at the Singapore Institute of Technology, where I've been teaching since 2015. I've always been interested in new ways to teach cybersecurity because my background, how I got into cybersecurity was non-traditional. So I try to give it back as well. We develop non-traditional pathways to cybersecurity education, like, for example, how we train conscripts in Singapore and so on. I play CDFs, did some vulnerability research. Yeah, didn't really publish them in public because, for example, yeah, we found a vulnerability with the contact tracing system during COVID. So if we were to disclose that publicly, yeah, that's going to cause chaos. So we reported them to the government, and the government took care of it. All right. So the agenda for today, we're going to talk about what the problem is, okay, and we're going to talk about how we need to change assessments, how we need to change education in well, universities or institutes of higher learning, right? Focusing more on the competency of the students, right? And how we do that by using authentic learning and assessments. We're going to talk a little bit about the friction and pushbacks. Might sound like a complaint session, but yeah, you'll see what are the kind of pushbacks, what are the kind of issues that might arise if we do something like this, and how we can align it. How can conferences like, for example, TenguCon can come together, right, to build these pipeline as well. It's not a one-man show. It's not me and me alone. We need the ecosystem to come in as well. All right, so the problem at hand. Now, as a cybersecurity ecosystem, right, there are students here, there are professors here, there are members of the ecosystem here, people who are employed in cybersecurity, people who have cybersecurity companies and so on. We all know that this cybersecurity needs real competence. We're not just talking about exam passes here, but they are, people need to be able to do the stuff. Students, when they go out and work, they need to be able to apply the knowledge to realistic problems. Nobody's going to ask how you're going to, well, do a SQL injection on a piece of paper. Everybody's going to say, look, here's a website, hack it, show me how you do it. Or here's a case file, investigate it, tell me what you find, and yeah, if you can tell me and I'm satisfied with it, you get hired. Right? So that's what the ecosystem really needs, the industry really needs, right? But there's another side to it, right? Which is in blue, which is we want graduates. So most of the time, if you talk about ecosystem like this, for example, those who are interested will find out about the ecosystem. They will come into the ecosystem by themselves because they have interest. They go and play CTFs because they're interested. They go and participate in conferences because they're interested. But there's a whole bunch of people as well, a whole bunch of students who don't know that this ecosystem exists, or who may not be so aware of this ecosystem. So we want them to also know that an ecosystem exists, right? Comprising of people of like-minded interests, people who are welcoming to them and so on. And not just knowing that, we want them to be able to contribute to this ecosystem. Because, well, everyone's using tools. What happens when nobody writes the tools? We need people who write the tools as well. So these younger generations are the perfect people who start cultivating them, actually. All right? So when we talk about competence, yeah, the screen's a little bit dark here, but let me just, as a professor, we always have laser pointers. Yeah. So competence, we define it as possessing the knowledge, the hands-on skills, and also the judgment and the ethics, right? So this is what the industry needs. In a university, in an institute of higher learning, or at least more traditional ones, most of them tend to focus on, or a number of them tend to focus mainly on this part, knowledge, right? Here's SQL injection. Here's the master boot record, right? These are the bits and so on, okay? Sometimes they might focus on this, right? Yeah, so here's a small little exercise, damn vulnerable web application, go and hack it, and so on, right? And of course, judgment and ethics is needed. Well, that's where we talk about academic integrity and so on. But if we just focus on this, right? If we just focus on this part here, then we got a problem. I mean, and here and a little bit of here, we have this problem that we end up mainly here, right? So this whole triangle thing is the Bloom's taxonomy. So in Institute of Higher Education, like where I come from, we use something like this in order to define where, at what level we're actually covering our contents. Whether we are just covering at a level where someone just needs to remember, where someone needs to understand a little bit, they're able to apply or analyze, or more advanced kind of knowledge. They need to be able to evaluate, given scenarios, they need to evaluate, or even create, create original work, tools, and so on. So we say, if we just focus on the knowledge, maybe a little bit of hands-on skill, we end up pretty much here. Well, they're able to analyze, they're able to know that the problem exists, maybe apply a little bit, right? But can we level them up to here? And that's important because, well, ecosystem is impatient, right? We don't want people to just talk about the basic stuff. We want people to show, POC or it didn't happen, that kind of thing. So can we level them up to here? So that's where we need more power, right? And that is where, when we talk about how we teach in a university, it's important as well if you're a student, because if you're a student, you can actually ask your professors to focus more on these things. We say that we can adopt a more competency-based, authentic learning assessments approach. Now, talks like this, all right, these kind of language, we typically don't use it outside of pedagogical environments. We don't really discuss about it in, let's say, cybersecurity conference. We talk more about this in education conferences and so on. But here, I'm hoping that by bringing it here, we can understand what professors are facing as well, and we see how we can actually work together from the ecosystem's perspective. So competence, and we talk about competent practitioner, we are not just talking about people who just pass the exams, all right? When people ask, well, what is competency? Usually I will throw this question back to them. You're going to take a flight. You probably don't want a pilot who can just tell you, okay, this is how we take off, this is how we maintain cruising altitude, this is how we land, and so on. You want a pilot who's able to fly, all right? You want to not just fly, actually, you want a pilot who will be able to take off, maintain cruising altitude, and land. There's no point having a pilot who can take off but can't land, all right? So you want someone who is literally, competent, okay? And so the question is, how do we do that? Now, in where I come from, typically some of the techniques that we use, well, again, this is a little bit too dark, things like capture the flag, right? So capture the flag is an assessment technique that we have been using for the longest of time. It's a teaching technique that we've been using for the longest of time over in the Singapore Institute of Technology. We started introducing tools building, basically asking students to build tools since 2018, 2019, thereabouts, all right? And in some of the years, we also did some fun stuff, right? So there was one year we asked students to, hey, here's the lockdown browser that we use for our university exams. Hack it. Write a report, and you get marks. And you'll be surprised at the kind of vulnerabilities we found with the kind of lockdown browsers we're actually using, right? So, and there's actually much more, a lot more techniques for training competency, right? I mean, we can't go through every single thing. The stuff I list here is just what the university uses. But what we want to talk about more today is on the tools building, right? Because this is where we want the ecosystem to be involved. We want the students to be involved in the ecosystem as well. So in a tools building project, right, like the one over here. So this over here is an example of a project assignment that I give to my students, right? The idea is students are tasked to build a novel tool that's tied to the course. In the course that I teach, digital forensics, they can develop, if I were to zoom in, for this assignment, you're required to design and implement a novel technical solution that can either be used for, one, solving a problem in digital forensics, or to make this more fun, engage in anti-forensics, right? So this is the kind of projects that we actually give our students. We say that you're free to do anything you want, free to choose some specific use case, whether it's offensive, defensive, as long as you can relate it back to digital forensics. So it's a very simple assignment. Do whatever you want, create a tool, create a solution, as long as it's for digital forensics, high quality, sufficiently complex, novel, you're good, all right? And if you just give this, that's going to be a problem because students will just start thinking about, hey, let me just create an easier solution where I can get an A, right? So we put something like this as well, all right? This part here at the end, in particular, all right? Does your solution have the potential to be showcased to the public, such as through community meetups or cybersecurity academic conferences? This is important if you want to do well for assignments. Now, the reason why we put this there, all right, if we tie it back to what we just talked about, some students don't know the existence of the ecosystem. We want them to be aware of the ecosystem. We put this in here. Or we said, hey, look, you're creating a tool. At the end of the day, does this tool have potential to be showcased to other people? Can you share it with other people and so on, right? And then we put the second part, which is, well, you want to do well, make sure that this really can be showcased. So one, to expose them to the ecosystem, that the ecosystem exists. Two, to get them to be able to contribute to the ecosystem if they want to get good marks. All right. Of course, the assignment sheet is longer. If actually you're interested in the entire assignment sheet, I can share it with you later. I mean, just come and talk to me. Great. We put this up for 200 over students, and at the end of the day, we get like 50 over projects per year. All right, so poor me, 50 submissions, we have to deal with it. Now, what do we do with it? The good news is, okay, I won't say that all projects will be suitable for publications. In a class, you normally have a distribution where you have good, you have average, you have a not so good kind of projects and so on, right? So the good ones, we pipe into conferences. And that's why we talk, going back to the title of the project, how do we turn students' work into publishable security work? So here, for example, these are 4 examples of works that we have actually submitted to global regional conferences, 3 plus 1. So this is actually, when we first started off doing something like this, we submitted one of the projects to a global hackathon. The United Nations flew the entire team to Vienna, and they basically wiped the floor with everyone else. So this here is a regional conference, happened this year. So this is one of our students who also developed the technology that was presented here. For basically what he developed was on how we can counter forensic software. So basically, these 2 talks are related because here we're talking about the technology itself, how we can counter forensic software by quite literally letting them in and then messing around with them once the mobile phone's data is being extracted. Here we talk more about the technology itself. Here we talk more about the governance policy aspects. And this one here is another presentation at Black Hat Arsenal, where our students were, one of the students, his project was in 2022, but he only submitted in 2025 and managed to get in. So yeah, so for good projects, we try to help them to submit to conferences and so on. All right, whether it's Black Hat, DEF CON, this year is not the DEF CON main stage, it's actually the community talks, the creator stage, sorry. To maybe even in the future like TenguCon and so on, right? So beyond just talking it in conferences, what we also do is we release vulnerability reports to the vendors who are affected. So if you recall what we talked about just now, that one of the projects was about how we bait those forensic software, let them in, and then we mess around with the evidence in the device while extraction is being performed. So students, they created a video like this, and from here, we actually send it to, in this case, this was Belkasoft, right? So Belkasoft was affected, so we actually reported it to them. Some vendors are happy, some vendors are like, dude, why are you doing this to us? Right, so the lockdown browser, the one that we tried was, yeah, dude, what are you trying to do? I'm like, dude, we're actually using it for our exams, right? So, yeah, we do this. We also sometimes publish it in more traditional academic conferences. I mean, if the treatment is it warrants that, so we do that. So yeah. We get 50 plus projects a year in a course. We try to pipe them as instructors, you know, to relevant courses, to relevant things around the world, whether it's an academic conference, whether it's a practitioner conference, whether it's a vulnerability disclosure, or so on. Okay. But yeah, I mean, so far I've been sharing the good stuff. To do this, it's not something that straightforward. And even in my university, we're not talking about entire program doing this thing. And there are some realities that we need to keep in mind. First things first, students, they optimize themselves for passing. So students are great optimizers. You give them an assignment, they will figure out the best way to pass, sometimes including questionable approaches. Yeah. If we talk about traditional assignments, let's say quizzes and so on, they are quite easy to game. They don't really demand much to accomplish. If you give them more complex assessments, like for example, the projects and so on, yeah, they will need certain improvisation, right? So students are optimizers. So let's say, for example, if we give that project assignment to the student, what do you think they'll do? Create a tool that does anything within digital forensics. What do you think a student would do? Anyone? Sorry? Check GitHub? No, the modern student will do this. Yeah. So that's in a way, it's good and it's bad. It's good because we know that they are capable of using AI well, right? It's bad because then we start seeing this. Team A says, I want to do a tool that does X. Team B says, I want to do a tool that does X. Team C, well, yeah. By the fifth team, I say, look, you guys are using ChatGPT, aren't you? Right? So there's regular feedback sessions, so we tell the students, look, we kind of know they use ChatGPT for this, so maybe you want to think a little bit deeper about what you're trying to do and so on. Then they go back and try to fix things, and then we get this. Because what they do is they take the feedback, they throw it into ChatGPT again. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a to and fro thing, but at the end of the day, we kind of get a good spread of ideas, and the ideas are also quite, I would say, it depends on the topic of the season. So these days, we're talking about AI, AI for security, security for AI, and so on. So a lot of projects tend to focus on that. 5 years ago, for example, a lot of project topics were focused on social media, right? Correlation of social media data and so on. So we tend to see that kind of seasonal topics as well, all right? And then this. So we say that students are using ChatGPT, right? Now, authentic projects, like the ones that we give, they can feel a little bit unfamiliar. For some students, it can feel too hard, or to them, they might say, hey, this is a little bit unfair. It's normal for them to feel that way. It's not easy, right? Basically, we're telling students, look, I'm not going to tell you what to do. You tell me what you want to do, okay? So the you telling me what you want to do is typically the hardest part of the whole thing, right? I give them 4 weeks to think about it. Some of them feel it's too hard, it's unfair. And sad to say, sometimes we get loud minorities that can strongly resist change. And when we talk about loud minorities, yeah, they can be really, really loud. We're talking about complaining all the way to the university management, take it online, and so on, all right? So this is where leadership matters, right? So if you're planning to do this in the university, or if you're planning to ask your professors to do this, yeah, make sure that the university itself, the program, the degree program itself supports this, okay? It's one thing if the degree program says, or the degree program management says, hey, yep, this is a good idea. This is gonna be our flagship course. It's gonna show the potential of our students. Versus another program leadership who might say, all right, every professor is free to choose or free to set their own difficulty level. Now, compare the former and the latter, what's gonna happen? In the former, the program is behind the professor. In the latter, what the person is literally saying is, well, it's up to the professor himself. If you have any problems, go take it up with the professor. And guess what? It's gonna end up like this, again, all right? So, yeah, leadership really matters. Now, that comes to this. So if everything's really so good, why not just ask every professor in the program or the university teach this way? So, yes, we can do that, but this, to develop an authentic learning experience, right, let's say CTFs and so on, and to grade authentic assessments is not easy. So you have 50 projects a year, diverse topics. The instructor will need to grade every single one of them, according to a set of rubrics and all that. It is not easy. That's one. Two, in academia, sad to say, it rewards things that can be counted. Yeah, and when we mean things that can be counted, it means things like, for example, publications. So if I'm a professor in some other university, I might be, evaluated based on how many papers I publish, how much grant money I bring in, and so on. So yeah, in some universities, that's a kind of KPIs. And if that's a KPI, then the KPI for basically authentic learning, authentic assessment might not be so high. And sad to say, also sometimes some professors, I won't say all, I mean those of us all, everyone who's here we're all kind of cool, but there are some professors who may not have any idea how the real world works, in the sense that they as well don't know that an ecosystem exists, right? They're not participating in the ecosystem, they're not going to practitioner conferences and things like that, right? They publish in your traditional academic conference journals and so on. So the question is, what can we do? All right? Is this really the end? No, I would say. So here's a few things, depending on who you are. So if you're a student, okay, and if you're being trained, for example, how to hack by writing on a piece of paper, talk to a professor, say that, hey, maybe I want to have a little more authentic experience, right? Start with maybe CTFs and so on, or maybe even a freehand to do, an assignment to do a project, whatever I want within the topic of that they're teaching, right? If you're an educator, if you're a professor, if you're not already involved in the ecosystem, consider getting yourself involved in the ecosystem. I mean, this is something that I shouldn't be preaching here because everyone is here, they are in the ecosystem, right? And give your students authentic assessments, all right? That's all I can say. And if you're in the ecosystem, which is all of us here, look on. So we say that students' work can mature into things like conference talks, tools and libraries like in Black Hat Arsenal and so on, disclosure and case studies like what we've seen just now. If you're a conference, if you're a part of the ecosystem, these kind of acceptance, right, for students actually send a very strong signal. To a student, it means a lot for their project to be, for example, showcased in Black Hat Arsenal, right, to be accepted for a DEF CON creator stage talk. I mean, they don't even need to be main stage, it's just a creator stage talk. And it's very meaningful for them, right? And students' work, when we evaluate them for conferences and so on, we evaluate them, well, at the same bar as any other accepted entries in the same category. So if, let's say, the standard for talk at conference X is at this level, treat the students the same, right? Give them that kind of push, give them that kind of nudge that the industry gives to every other people. It shows them what the reality is, all right? Don't just give them chances because they're students, right? Give them chances because they are good. And then slowly from there, you know, maybe it won't, the first time around, these kind of techniques won't work that well. After a while, things start to, you know, start to work out fine, and we start getting more and more talks into conferences, into different places, and so on. So in a nutshell, if you want graduates who can actually do cybersecurity, there needs to be alignment. There needs to be alignment in terms of courses, programs, conferences, and all being around authentic competency-based kind of work, right? We need to insist that students' work accepted because they are genuinely good, all right? So if anyone's interested to talk more about pedagogical approaches in cybersecurity, I'll be very happy to share it. So far in my university, I'm probably one of the few, right? So it's good to be able to share these kind of techniques or these kind of approaches to all. It's very high level, right? Depending on the course you teach, might be a little bit different. So keep in touch, right? Email's right below there. You can always send me an email. Thank you very much, and if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. I think I got 3. I have about 3 minutes, right?
Yeah, and then we have a break, so obviously if the questions go longer, it's no problem. I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So, in your experience kind of advocating for this kind of cybersecurity education in universities, could you share like some of the main, I guess, reasons for pushback you might have gotten from your administration or like maybe even other colleagues for this method as opposed to traditional education methods? And like how you maybe negotiated those to get progress on your I guess, methodology?
All right, good question. So so in a university, all right, each course is taught by a bunch of instructors that are typically independent of each other, all right? As an instructor, I do not have the authority to go and tell another person that, hey, you should be teaching this way, all right? If I do that, the next thing is I'm going to be talking to my boss about, hey, what are you trying to do? So usually what we do in this case is we try to get advocates at a higher level, at the teaching and learning department of the university. So like this approach, or whatever I'm talking to you about, in my university, they actually are very supportive of this. They created like videos and so on about good pedagogical approaches in cybersecurity education, and then they film it and then they show it to the other faculty members and so on, right? So that's one approach. If we talk about pushbacks, pushbacks would typically be from administrators who just want, well, let's not rock the boat. Things are working fine and all that. So when they do that, they can, in a polite way, they'll say, look, every instructor has their own standards. And when they do that, basically, it's, well, you're on your own. Yeah, that's the kind of pushback that I've seen before for people who try to implement more radical kind of stuff.
Thank you. There are no more questions.
Yep. No more questions? All right.